Happy Monday, y'all. Charlene here from Lady in Waiting 222, and today is our Monday mini devotional. So today we're going to be reading from a very familiar passage of scripture, Esther chapter 3, verses 13 and 14. I'm going to be reading the New Living Translation. And it reads, Mordecai sent this reply to Esther. Don't think for a moment that because you're in the palace, you will escape when all other Jews are killed. If you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place, but you and your relatives will die. Who knows if perhaps you were made queen for just such a time as this? And so the backstory, for those who may not know the story or familiar or need to be reminded, Esther was a Jewish young girl who became queen of King Xerxes, right? And she, again, was of Jewish background, but of course, no one knew that. She kept it a secret. And so here it is, Mordecai has found out some information about one of King Xerxes' men, Haman, that he was plotting to kill off a whole entire nation, right? A whole entire people group, the Jews, which Esther was a part of. And so Mordecai is now letting Esther know about what is about to happen, and with the intent that she is to go before the king to let the king know about what is happening so that he can do something about it. And so Esther now is aware of this, and she's kind of a little bit, I would say, maybe resistant about that, because she recognizes that you cannot go before the king unless you are summoned, right? And she hadn't been summoned to stand before the king. And so it literally could result in death, which she was aware of. And so she responds back to Mordecai after learning about this news. And this is Mordecai's reply to her in verses 13 and 14. And so I want you to consider this, that where God has positioned you, wherever you are, that place that you are in right now, it's not just because of you. It actually has nothing to do with you, right? It's not, you're not there just by chance. Okay. So if you're in a certain position at your job, if you're in a certain area, if you're in a certain position, if God has placed you somewhere, it's strategic, especially as a believer. We're never anywhere by chance. And this is your reminder, my reminder, that God always sees nations. He always sees generations. He always sees far beyond what we could think. So while Esther was literally a queen, she had the king's ear, right? She encountered the king. She had the king's ear. And Mordecai recognized that her position wasn't necessarily just for her, that God had strategically placed Esther in the palace as the queen to have the king's ear for such a time as this. God strategically placed Esther in a position to literally deliver an entire people group, which she actually belonged to. And so it wasn't just by chance that she was placed in that position. It wasn't necessarily because of anything Esther did, right? She had to go before the king just like everybody else. It was a whole year process. I encourage you to go and read the book of Esther. But God has strategically placed Esther there for such a time as this. She was in position in the right place to be able to set an entire nation free, right? To save an entire people group. And so I want to encourage you and to remind you again that you're not placed anywhere by chance. God doesn't do anything just by happenstance. He's too strategic for that. He's too detail oriented for that. And he knows our end from our beginning. And so if we're in a position, I pray that you use it for God's glory. I pray that you recognize that deliverance may possibly be in your mouth. And for you to remain silent in that position that God has placed you in, it could be that he will raise someone else up. As Mordecai stated, he said, if you keep quiet at a time like this, deliverance and relief for the Jews will arise from some other place. But he allowed Esther to realize and recognize that she was not exempt from dying, right? That her relatives would die, and so would she, because she was a part of the Jewish nation. And he allowed her to see that perhaps she was made queen. She was placed in this position for such a time as this. That deliverance literally was in Esther's mouth. Could deliverance be in your mouth? Could deliverance be in my mouth? So I challenge you this week that wherever you are, Recognize that it's not by happenstance, that God will use you if you're open and ready and willing to even take a risk. Stay encouraged and go and be blessed and encouraged. Take care.